Seahawks and Price for Thursday, March 5th, 2026. We're a presentation of Bet365. Matt Seahawks, along with Blake Price, Mike Rogerson, hitting switches, conducting things coming here from the Nation Network studio here at the historic Wall Center, where it is an absolutely gorgeous, splendid late winter day in the city of Vancouver. That alone should make us happy today.
Forecast calling
Look
for
at this. This is why you live here.
The probability of trade precipitation is low, though. And that has a lot of people a little bit up in arms here, Matt.
As it should. As it should.
The trade forecast not looking good.
This is, I will, present tense, is a extremely important trade deadline for the Vancouver Canucks and Canucks Sports Entertainment. There are business considerations here, folks, on top of solely the hockey operations considerations. They are finally rebuilding, and rebuilding means liquidating assets for future assets, draft picks, prospects, younger, cheaper NHL roster players. Now, I will say I have Harmon Dial ringing in my ears. We used to call Harmon Boy Genius. He's now just Genius. But Harmon,
he's 24.
He's mid-20s.
He's a man.
He's grown up.
He's a man.
No, but Harmon made an outstanding point a couple of weeks ago when he was on our program. He said, I'm trying to remind myself that not all this work needs to get done at the deadline.
Yeah.
They still have until July 1st in the new league year. And I specified July 1st in the new league year. Obviously, the rebuild is going to go on beyond that. But that's when Connor Garland's trade protection kicks in.
That's right.
Right? And I think that is a critical piece. Like, for me, that is the linchpin. This deadline, this trade cycle through the draft hinges on making a very good trade for Connor Garland. I think it's becoming clearer and clearer that Garland and a lot of the vets don't want to be a party to this. There's part of me that doesn't blame them in the least.
You also get the teams that are panicked because they realize all the UFAs have been signed. There's nobody left.
Right.
I don't mind taking on your guy with term now because I can't sign anybody else to make me better.
I talked to an NHL executive this week. He said, look, we're not really big deadline shoppers this year, but Garland is someone who has come up in our meetings and we would absolutely revisit in the summer when we have more cap space and, staring down the barrel, perhaps losing some UFAs. So they have until July 1st on a lot of these fronts.
Yep.
They, of course, do not have until July 1st on the UFA front, where Teddy Bluger, Evander Kane, and David Kampf, although I'm not sure David Kampf is worth anything, are still Vancouver Canucks on expiring contracts. In fact, Kampf turning the puck over, taking a penalty for shift last night. Like, if you were a deadline shopper and you're looking at that, you go, no, that's not an NHL player.
No.
And look, things are going to be exceedingly difficult, I think, with Evander Kane now, too. He's got a reputation that precedes him. We talked about the residual matter that's going on in Edmonton, which the NHL months ago asked Edmonton authorities if they would share information with them. They said no. And so, given a lack of information there, Evander's preceding the fact that he's a bigger ticket, the fact that you have to have a strong room. He's had his issues with teammates in the past. I am starting to lose hope in an Evander Kane deal. But Teddy Bluger, by all rights, should be moved in the next 24 hours.
I mean,
that's not one I think that you can get. And typically I would say, okay, like a third round pick, what's he worth? That's not make or breaking the franchise. No big deal here.
It's competency
it's
test,
not
though.
Exactly, Blake.
Yes.
Exactly.
And you've got a completely affordable center playing very well this year.
When he's been healthy, he has been quite good.
So if you can't move that guy
in an environment where third line, fourth line centers are going for pretty good prices here, and we'll get into that.
Yeah, and I don't think anybody's asking for the price to be matched here, Matt.
No.
Like, I don't think anybody's saying Teddy Bluger is Nick Waugh.
No.
But if you can get 2/3 of that price for Ted Bluger, I think that's reasonable. And again, there's no crucifixion happening today. 24 hours to go here.
Right.
But we're just reading the tea leaves. Like, I mean, the Edmonton Oilers, it sounds like the Edmonton Oilers have already said, we are done for the week.
They didn't have a lot of cap space to begin with. So,
but it's pretty funny to hear this, 30 hours before the deadline, we are done.
Yeah.
Expect no more.
That could also be a leverage ploy too, right?
Could be.
Yeah.
Yep.
We will start with our daily poll question asking you, how many more trades do the Canucks need to make to have a successful deadline? You can vote 1, you can vote 2, you can vote 3, you can vote trade them all. Do so at the Sekerson Price X and YouTube channels. I voted 3. If you're asking me right now, how many do I think they'll make? I'm guessing 2. Bluger, and either they find a taker for Kane at the last minute, or it's someone like a Garland or an O'Connor, a veteran with term.
I mean, if you're a professional,
that's my best guess right now.
If you're a professional golfer and you play to par, is that a successful day on the course? Generally not.
Well, if it's Shinnecock at a U.S. Open, yeah, it sure is. If it's on a super blustery day on the coast of Scotland, it sure is.
It's a par 2 course here.
At a run of the mill, at TPC Twin Cities in the dead of August, not so much.
It's a par 2. If they get 2, they've done their job. If that's quote unquote success in your mind. Let's see
what they get back, Blake. I mean, it's not just the number of trades; it is the quality of return that matters.
But ultimately, Matt, if a trade for Teddy Bluger happens tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. and they get a 5th round pick back, you're very disappointed. But at that point, if there was something more on the table, they would have taken it. Mm-hmm. So ultimately, does the price matter? You want it to be as good as possible. Mm-hmm. But ultimately, guys like a Teddy Bluger cannot remain on your roster.
No.
So,
or if you think Teddy Bluger has the leadership chops to lead this group of young players going forward, particularly since you just said goodbye to maybe your best leader in Tyler Myers, then I have time for that on a team-friendly deal. Not my preference.
Do that in the summer. Tell him to go rent a house for 2 months wherever he ends up, and he says, and you tell him, I've got a deal waiting for you.
I agree with that, Blake, but as you know, the trading a guy out and then bringing him back is just so
well, generally we've reserved that, though, for middle 6 or top players. Like, for a fourth-line player, it has a better chance of working, I think. So
I voted 3, you voted...
I'll go 2. I won't be angry at 2.
It's not a prediction. It's a what do you want?
Yeah.
What do you need?
At 2, I will not have a visceral reaction to either be sick or violent.
All right.
So I'll say 2.
Mike, you're a big Canucks fan. You went to the game last night. Where are you voting?
After seeing trade them all. Get them out of here.
And that was on a reasonably better night for the Vancouver Canucks last night.
Yeah, that was the best. Well. That's not good.
Blake and I were both on the verge of hitting send on really sarcastic, biting tweets about the Canucks after the opening 10, 15 minutes last night when the score was 1-0 Carolina and the shots were like 13-3.
Yeah.
And then they scored those 2 goals.
And then I was going to send that same text again at 5-2.
And then they showed a little scrap again at the end.
Yeah. So in the end, I'm glad.
Pierre LeBrun, quoting a team executive, said, as of this morning, it is definitely a seller's market right now. Prices are sky high for the buyers, not an overabundance of players available either, which that last part is surprising to me. I thought there was quite a bit of I thought supply here was pretty high. I thought that's why Darren Dreger and some others were talking about a buyer's market earlier in the week because of the supply. But it stands to reason it's a seller's market. Yeah, you've had some more quote-unquote sellers join the fray here. Toronto has joined as a seller. Chicago has joined as a seller. Nashville has joined as a seller. But this should be a fertile marketplace for Jim Rutherford and Patrick Alvin. Let's just go through some names here. Chris Johnson on Elias Pettersson saying he just thinks it's so overly complicated, $11.6 million on the salary to add at this point, that if he's going to be moved, he expects him to be moved in the summer, not by Friday. We've talked about Bluger. There is some interest heating up on Drew O'Connor, and rightfully so. The young man is having a terrific season, was very good again last night.
Super affordable, has term left, which is attractive because it's a $2.5 million set. He could be a really nice, sneaky deadline addition for a team looking for a third liner. Colorado Avalanche got their third line center today. They're also looking for a third line winger. I'm wondering if there's a fit there. He seems like a Colorado player. 6'4", 210 is O'Connor.
Yeah,
just to remind you,
sizable guy.
And here's the thing: we don't even know how good he'd be in the playoffs. He's only played 2 playoff games in his 300 NHL game career, and those came in 21-22.
Yeah, he's played on some bad Pittsburgh teams. Irf was in here and saying he wouldn't be surprised if Besser is more willing to waive trade protect for more markets now than he would have prior to all this. And even maybe earlier in the week when he spoke on, it was a good line. It's not a deadline unless my name's in there. If they do trade Brock, I will miss his interviews. I will miss his sense of humor. I will miss his just
he can commiserate with Mason
cool.
Raymond.
It's the effortless cool of Besser. I mean, if you can bottle that and sell it, alas, you have to sell him for what he does on the ice, and there's not a whole lot there. But he did score again last night.
Should have had another one.
Yeah, and then we mentioned Kane and Camp, and I'm not sure there are markets there. Oh, there's some talk around the NHL that there's more urgency on Garland from the Canucks' point of view. Now, he's having an absolutely shocking run here. How many games now for Connor Garland between goals? I mean, it's just...
And he fought the puck a little last night. Line looked better, but then when he was set up for opportunities, he could not execute.
Like he hasn't scored since December 16th.
December 16th?
December
All
16th.
Situations? Holy
goals.
Crap.
6 games thus far in February and March. Ofer. Did not score a goal in the month of January.
What are the shot totals along the way, too?
14 games there. So 20.
Does he get to 3 shots much at all? Any games?
Is it 26 games without a goal for Garland?
And shots on goal?
Shot totals, Connor Garland.
Did he get into 3 at all?
He got to 3 in 2 of the 4 games in February.
Okay.
He got to 3 or more. He had a 4-shot game in 3 of the, 14 games in January? Did I just say 14?
Okay. I think it's 16 games.
It's 11, yeah. Anyways.
Okay, so he's shooting a little bit. But
Garland went pointless in January. Oh.
Yeah.
It's staggering how bad a year he's having.
Well,
because this is a much better player than 7 goals, 19 assists, 26 points, dash 15.
But keep in mind, the spirit was broken on this team by Christmas.
That's right. That's right.
So
the Hughes trade went. I mean, they won 4 in a row after the Hughes trade. I think it was a little bit of rally. Oh my God, just shock, trauma. Will show them, but it was always.
Do you know that they were 8-1?
Yeah. I remember we were talking about how they're right at 500. They're right at 500.
17
and
games.
We were talking about 500's not good enough, but they're right at 500.
It's almost a quarter of the season, and they were salvageable, and then they were not. And now, Matt, getting to 4 goals last night was like summiting Everest. First time they got past 2 goals in 10 games. Whew.
Let's get to our top story, brought to you by Yellow Dog Brewing, Neighborhood Brewing, Foolish Winery. Worry throughout the province as another quiet Canucks deadline is shaping up, and they really needed to nail this one. Present tense. Got to remind myself. But one day after making the first rebuild trade of the Rutherford-Alvin era, Tyler Myers, a veteran with term for 2 picks from Dallas, the Canucks are still holding their UFAs. They're unable to leverage cap space and signaling an underdeliver from what most fans want. We have to get to this quote from Patrick Alvin yesterday. Asked about the market, quote, "The market is interesting. I don't even know if it's a market at the moment." And when I first read this, a shot of rage and fury coursed through me. And I settled for a moment, and I went, okay, I'm not going to immediately take this as nobody has interest in our players, a redux of last year. I'm not going to immediately take this as a preview of inaction by Friday. And I'm not going to immediately take this as a preemptive excuse. He did go on to say last year saw a flurry of activity late. He's not wrong there. And then explained that filled roster spots are making deals more difficult. That both, and remember, there are new LTIR rules now and a playoff cap, so that teams are carrying 23 and they're going, oh, I really like this guy over here, but if I make a trade for him and I'm not removing anything off the roster, then I've got to waive somebody to go down to the minors and maybe they get claimed. So I can understand that.
The other
reasoning.
nuance there, Matt, is the condensed schedule, as we have chronicled, has caused a lot of injuries throughout the course of the season.
Right.
And
so teams are working out their playoff lineups and going, is this cap compliant in the playoffs?
And you don't want to put these guys on LTIR because then you cannot use them in the playoffs.
I get all that.
It is tough.
Not to mention even the roster limit. Some teams are up close to the 50 contract limit, I should say.
Yeah.
So I tried to think it through and remind myself of all of those things before letting the rage and fury get the best of me. That said, if you're a Vancouver Canucks fan, you have every right to be nervous listening to that comment because of the disaster that was last year's deadline and because of this management group's inability to reap value from its assets. And I see a lot of that as these trades are going down. It's like, oh, man, how are these other GMs able to get such great value from some of their players? Let's hear from Alvin from yesterday. Here he is talking about the difficulty of the market.
I don't know. I think last year, you look at, I don't think there was a whole lot of trades leading up to the last 2 days. I'm sure other teams are looking at their options, what's out there, and you see the Eastern Conference there that's still fairly wide open. So there is different discussions. I do think that there's one thing with the cap, but I also looking at teams that roster spots, including ourselves, roster spot is an issue too. You have players on your roster. We had carried a couple extra here that haven't played as of lately, and I think that's something, again, around the league.
Okay. And he's not wrong on cap space for some teams. Edmonton, Vegas, Montreal, Dallas. There are some teams there that are dollar in, dollar out, or can add a whole lot of salary now. I get that. I mean, there's also a number. Detroit is sitting on $12.7 million cap space, Blake, on a playoff spot when your room was upset at the general manager last year for not giving them more and giving them a better opportunity to fight down the stretch.
And a city that is desperate to get back into the playoffs again. And
Carolina, the ceiling of the Eastern Conference Finals, sitting on 9-8 in cap space right now.
Yeah.
And there's some others in there as well.
Yeah, pretty available for trades, but there is surprising.
And you brought this to my attention. Dhaliwal said this morning an NHL executive told him exactly the opposite of what Alvin says, and even name-checked Alvin, saying, no, it's a hot market.
We were amazed at the start of the season at how many teams were carrying space. Like, for the past 5 years, Matt, everybody was like the amount of teams that started every season at the cap doing cap gymnastics, and that hasn't been like.
Well, the cap went up
Yeah.
a lot, and if you're acquiring a player with term, even if it's a big cap hit going forward, cap's going up again this summer. So that should absolutely be greasing the skids for more trading at this deadline. And we want to isolate on right shot defensemen here for a second. Now, the news this morning is that Colton Parayko has invoked his no trade clause. He is not going to Buffalo. So that deal is off. And that deal was for a pretty hefty return for St. Louis. Radim Murtka, who's a gigantic right shot defenseman, top 10 pick, and a first round pick. I believe there were other parts of the deal as well. And Parayko's got a number of years left. So this wasn't a rental price by any stretch. Mackenzie Weegar, and we'll get into that deal a little later. Calgary to Utah and the volume haul that Calgary got. And that has Canucks fans wondering, and I do not blame them for 1 second. God, what is Philip Hronek worth in this market? A top pair, all situations, right shot defenseman on a good contract. I saw our friends at Canucks Army and Canucks Conversation, Dave Quadrelli, Harmon Dial, were talking about that. If Weegar goes for a flippable roster player, a B-level prospect, and 3 second-round picks, and good second-round picks, too, what does Hronek go for? Cody Severson of Canucks Army. Managerial incompetence if the Canucks brass haven't immediately gone to Philip Hronek and Alan Walsh to ask for preferred destinations after seeing the going prices for premium right Ds. Spot on. That is worth the conversation right now.
And you can have that conversation. Doesn't mean they should just do it because they can't unilaterally do it. We just saw Colton Parayko nix a trade today already. And Philip Hronek has been the one guy with term who has unequivocally put flag in the ground and said, I do not want to leave.
Honestly, Blake,
so
I am watching him.
It's a long shot.
I am watching him play in these games that are relatively meaningless in the standings amidst a group of other veterans who just don't give a shit, and it shows. And he is warming my heart. He's not a warm, cuddly personality, but holy cow, give me the care, give me the heart of Philip Hronek. Give me 23 Philip Hronek hearts, if not Philip Hronek talents, and the Vancouver Canucks would be so much further ahead than where they are right now.
And he played 20 minutes at 5-on-5
last
night.
Huge
at 5-on-5.
Yeah.
And he was still 50% Corsi against a team that dominates Corsi in the Carolina Hurricanes.
6 more years at 7.25 for a 28-year-old. I mean, good contract, good player.
Yeah. Yeah, it's and yet
Blake and I have both articulated there's a good case for keeping Philip Hronek. He could absolutely be part of your next competitive cycle.
Young enough.
Yeah, and good enough.
Yeah.
And right-handed and all, I mean, the scarcest commodity in the National Hockey League, right?
Yep.
The all situations, top pair, right shot defenseman. But I do think, and especially if you're going to be holding the bag on Kane, Kampf, even Bluger, maybe even Garland. Boy, if you're the Canucks, I hope you're into plan B, C, D, E, and F here.
Yeah.
Now, on top of the relative inactivity, bad Canucks moves of years past are back in the news with third parties double dipping on their account. The Edmonton Oilers send a future first-round pick to Chicago to shed the Andrew Mangiapane salary and acquire former Canucks centerman Jason Dickinson from Chicago. You may remember that Vancouver sent Dickinson and a second to the Blackhawks years ago to get off his salary. Boudreau had no use for him. Now Chicago is getting a first, and that second they got from the Canucks for leveraging its cap space, rehabilitating the player into an asset, and taking on bad money. And a lot of fans are screaming, why can't the Canucks do this? And I don't blame them. Did you put the Drance tweet up there, Mike?
I will grab it right now.
Okay. Because I think Thomas was spot on in what he said about this as well. Yeah, would really like to see Vancouver find a way to manufacture assets in a asset value in a similar manner prior to the deadline. Yep.
Well, a lot of people have even said, like, should you consider buying, not to make yourself better, but buying, like, a part of the Evander Kane signing was to get an asset, but also, hey, there's something to sell at the trade deadline if things go awry.
It was a worthwhile reclamation project.
Yeah. Now, it didn't work out, but you can do a way more low-cost version of that by helping out a team that maybe wants to get off of a contract for a player that you think is flippable if you can rehabilitate the player just a little bit. I mean, it's a case-by-case basis, but there are opportunities to, create some cap space for a team that's shopping and get a player that you can flip next year. Like, those things do present themselves.
Remember Dubas? I think it was 2 years in a row in Toronto. He went out and he signed a bunch of vets to 1 year, 2 year deals and just kept flipping them at the deadline. Now, fans also scrutinizing the returns, with the Canucks unable to get a first-round pick for Kiefer Sherwood in what is firmly a seller's market. Now, some of you may say 2 seconds is better than a late first. Okay. Sky-high prices for checking centers. Nicholas Waugh goes from Toronto to Colorado for a conditional first and conditional fifth. Now, huge right shot centerman with a Stanley Cup ring. So this isn't an apples to apples with Teddy Bluger. Former Canuck Nick Dowd, who turned into a pretty good player, actually, in Washington. He goes to Vegas for a prospect, a second, and a third. We mentioned Dickinson. We mentioned the prices on Weegar and Parayko, even if the latter nixed the trade. And to be clear, nobody is equating Waugh or even Dowd to Bluger or Myers to Weegar or Parayko.
Prices are all different.
It's just get approximate value.
Yeah.
If they are 80% of that player, get 80% of the value.
Just get the matching value for what they're worth.
That's right. We're going to be joined here by David Pagnotta, the fourth period DFO insider, coming up. But I wanted to get to what else is out there before we bring David in. Pierre LeBrun says the teams to watch on Connor Garland: Washington, Boston, the Islanders, we heard about that, and the Devils. I asked you yesterday, the Devils are willing to trade Simon Nemec, a right-shot defenseman, and they want a forward. God, if you can get Nemec for Garland.
Heck, even if you had to sweeten that just a little bit. And again, I'm not wholly convinced because there's a lot of criticism that rains down on Simon Nemec, but it's a worthwhile project.
And I know you'd prefer to get centers and forwards. That's, I think, a bigger need for the Canucks. But right-shot defenseman with the sort of talent, aptitude of a Nemec, young guy, that's an attractive asset. And why trade Garland right now? Because I know he's a fan favorite for many of you, even before the 40-year drought here. Blake, take a look at this. This is an analytics guy. He doesn't even specialize in hockey. Dear NHL GMs, if you learn one thing, learn the forward scoring rate age curve. Look at this. Have you seen this? NHL forwards, scoring-wise, drop off the map at 30.
Yep.
Just a straight downward spiral into the abyss scoring-wise once you get to 30. Hell, you even decline in your late 20s. We've been talking about this with the likes of Connor McDavid, Macklin Celebrate. 26, 27. That's it. It's downhill from there on average for NHL forwards. So Garland turns 30 next week. Again, they have till July 1st before that no move kicks in. But, of course, we were talking about this with Elias Pettersson last year, right? Oh, got to move him. If you're unconvinced, got to move him before July 1st because then he controls the process, blah, 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 blah. And they didn't.
Garland,
and now they're looking at moving.
Garland and Mancini for Nemec and a second.
Yes.
Right? You replace their defenseman with somebody who's a project for them on the right side still, so don't create a hole.
Here's former NHL player and agent Brian Lawton now in media, speaking with a number of different clubs this morning. It's clear the plan Bs and Cs are moving close to fruition. Lesser discussed players expected to move: Evander Kane, Nicolas Delorier. Buyers need cap relief as cap space is so tight to pull the trigger, in a common phrase this morning. We mentioned yesterday, but it bears repeating, because the Canucks retained on Tyler Myers and because they were already retaining on Ilya Mikheyev, they are only allowed to retain on one more player, and everybody has that earmarked for Evander Kane, which is appropriate, but does complicate their life if they get a whopping offer that they love for a veteran with term with the request that some money is retained. Now, you don't want to retain on 6 years of a Pettersson or a Garland or a Besser. I get that.
Just can't.
But you can't retain on O'Connor, right? Like, there are teams that I would think really like O'Connor. It might be cap tight. No. Can't retain on O'Connor.
I don't think the payoff will using up
Can't
a slot
retain
is not
on
going to be enough.
DeBrusque. Can't retain on DeBrusque. I mean, unless there's zero market for Kane, and you know that full well, and you're just totally punting on the idea.
I think as of 10 a.m., 10 a.m. tomorrow, inside the last 2 hours tomorrow, Matt, if they know the temperature on Evander Kane is so ice cold, you can start to entertain the idea of another retention. But again, the Canucks expect to be competitive probably 3 years down the road, and you're going to be retaining on a player?
No, you don't want to be doing that. And then there's this little nugget. If they don't move Evander Kane, Tosh, he's such a shit, but he amuses me greatly. Evander Kane's 1,000th game ceremony is coming up. Would be one of the more awkward ceremonies in NHL history if he isn't. Eklund, you're going to have to get a guy who wants out a gift. Here's your silver stick. Here's your tickets to Wimbledon.
I had another idea on Evander Kane. It is now moot because it would have need to have happened today. But we've seen two players this week bought out with the intention of termination of the contract so that they could re-sign by 3 p.m. tomorrow with the contending team. And, Matt, I have thought they might have considered that, both sides, because Evander Kane playing for the Canucks past the trade deadline makes no sense for Evander Kane.
Mm-hmm. No.
He's trying to advertise himself as a player that can help a good team.
That's it.
And get a contract for next year. There is some consideration that he's going to have to PTO it next year. That those are the depths that he's sunk to.
He needs a strong finish, I think, to get himself clear of that territory.
But the chances of showing a strong finish on this Canucks team are very low.
Slim.
But being a competitor, and even if it's not counting stats, but being in the fight with the contending team down the stretch and into a playoff run, that would maybe set himself up for a contract next year.
He'd have a narrow pathway to a good finish, A, because Rossi is back, B, because they might move out another forward and he gets more opportunity. But he got a ton of that opportunity earlier in the year.
He doesn't seem to care, but I think he would care if he was on a contending team.
Yeah, incidentally, Kane 11 games away from 1,000. He missed last night with illness, although I think that might have been, I want to be traded. I'm not going out there tonight.
Yeah.
The Canucks hold, after the Myers deal, 7 picks in the first 2 rounds over the next 2 drafts. It's 2 picks in this 2026 first round. It's 2 picks in the second round. 2027, it's a first and 2 seconds. So the picks as they stand right now in the 2026 draft, the first one is going to be between 1 and 3, and we've gone through that math before. It's most likely number 3, but you can't fall any further than number 3 if you're the last place club in the overall league standings. Would have a 45% chance of picking first or second. The wild pick right now is number 27, but that's by overall league standings. They're in that tough Central Division. If they were to get knocked out before the conference finals, that pick could improve. If they make it to the Stanley Cup final, that pick could regress. Pick number 33, it is the first pick in the second round, the Canucks' indigenous pick. Now, that pick is actually 32 if Ottawa winds up forfeiting its first-round pick. Right now, that's a forfeiture. The Senators are going to have a last-gasp Hail Mary to petition the league to reinstate that pick. We'll see. And it would be pick 44. And although much can change, unless San Jose goes on a run to the conference finals, you can pretty much guarantee that there are going to be 4 picks in the top 50 That's if they use them all. We have a trade.
Breathe, folks. It's
It's
not super
itty-bitty.
exciting. It's not super exciting, but this is the last time you'll hear Jet Wu attached to the Vancouver Canucks. Where is Jet Wu? Why doesn't he ever get a call up? That storyline has reached its conclusion. Jet Wu traded to the San Jose Sharks as these two teams dance once more. Jack Thompson, the defenseman, coming back the other direction. So this is not a rebuild move. This is kind of like for like in terms of
Jack Thompson's
position.
a 23-year-old right shot defenseman.
So slightly younger you get.
Yeah, he's played NHL games, 34 of them, 10 points with Tampa and San Jose.
No games this year.
Yeah,
31
he's
last year.
third rounder, 93rd overall in the 2020 draft, 6'1", 190 pounds.
He's done well offensively at the NHL level,
At the
strangely.
well,
at the NHL level, too. In his 31 games in 24-25, he got 10 points.
Yep.
4 goals in 31 games.
Yeah, and had been doing reasonably well as an offensive defenseman in the AHL, although that has started to wane a little bit this year with just 12 points in 42 games.
Yeah. I think that's probably why he became available, is there was a plateau that happened there. for him.
That was a depth defenseman.
Yeah.
That is a depth defenseman. Okay, so that's where the Canucks stand right now in terms of the picks. And they've also acquired, of course, 3 second-round picks in this trade cycle. The 2 from San Jose for Kiefer Sherwood, and then the 3rd yesterday from Dallas in the Tyler Myers trade. And accumulating all those second-round picks, it made Calgary jealous. The Mammoth acquire Mackenzie Weegar from the Flames in exchange for Oli Mata, Jonathan Castagna, who's a decent prospect, a centerman at Cornell, who's already outperformed his draft slot. Many believe he can be an NHL third-line center. And 3 2026 second-round picks. And those picks, as of right now, Blake, those Calgary picks that they acquired, the Rangers second-round pick, which would be 34th overall, the Senators second-round pick, which would be 47th overall, and then Utah's Indigenous second-round pick, which would be 51st overall. Now, in a cap world, you can make a volume trade and win it. We talked about this in the day that Quinn Hughes was traded. We've talked about this in the context of the Ottawa Senators selling Erik Karlsson back in the day, the Colorado Avalanche selling Matt Duchene back in the day. It's not always whoever gets the best player wins the trade. That said, Craig Conroy and Calgary have sort of consistently been acquiring not quite high-end assets, either prospects and players or high picks. This could be a very good volume trade for Calgary, Blake, but they did not get T.J. Ginla of Lake County, Lake Country. Jerome's son, who of course would have been such a hit in Calgary, first-round pick. They did not get Caleb Desnoyers, the first-round Quebec Major Junior, Maritime Junior centerman, Canadian World Junior, who Utah took high last year. They did not get Cole Baudouin, another Canadian World Junior big centerman. Calgary needed centers. Utah had prospect centers. They didn't get a center in this trade? Are you kidding me?
As a full rebuild, though, this draft for the Calgary Flames, 2 firsts, 4 seconds, 2 thirds, 8 picks in the first 3 rounds in 2026.
Well, Mike's got the visual. Mike, do you got the visual here on that?
Yeah, it's up.
Yo, there you go. Yeah.
Like,
look at that.
Like this
That is
actually,
how you rebuild.
This is actually what I thought the Canucks were going to try to do this year. I thought because, again, they want this rebuild to be as short as possible. I thought this is where the Canucks were going here, that they would try to get 8 in the first 3 rounds, something to that effect, and maybe 3 in the first round. And then you'd have a chance to say, hey, look, cupboard's stocked. Now it's time to try to win. I could have sworn this is the way they would go, and they just haven't been able to pull it off just yet. But Calgary again was very late in deciding that they were sellers. Not late like this week, but they were later than the Canucks in deciding that. And now they are full on.
Yeah. Bottom line, the coming years are going to be a scouting derby between the Canucks and the Flame Scouts to see who can turn more second-round picks into standing points in the Pacific Division.
Yeah. But
look at the Canucks and Flames. All those second-round picks. How many of them get to the league? How many of them are contributors? How many of them play 200,
but sheer volume,
300 NHL games?
In Flames have 8 picks in the first 3 rounds that we just showed you. The Canucks have 4. Like, they've got half of the amount of picks this year. And that's why this trade deadline, the next 24 hours, still matters for the Canucks.
Well, and the Flames have 2 first-rounders in 2027 as well.
Yeah.
And they have an additional second-round pick in 2028. So, yes, that's why you got to keep stockpiling those picks. Our friend Mr. Pagnotta is a little delayed. We're going to get to him, though. But first, a word from Yellow Dog in Neighborhood.
So much fun stuff to talk about there. How about this one? A new one, again. A craft cocktail with some bite. The Pink Tiger Gin and Juice, blended with lightly sparkling grapefruit juice and Yellow Dog Spirits dried gin. Super light touch of vanilla. It's fresh, bittersweet, and zesty. It's gin and juice season, folks. The Pink Tiger Gin and Juice.
It is her birthday today.
Yeah.
We have a backdoor patio whereby the sunblake is now just coming around that corner and hitting that patio. I think if I brought those things home tonight, they would last no time.
Every
She's
year,
going to finish work and she's going to be like, yes.
every year is like a
What are they called? Pink
Tiger Gin and Juice.
Tigers.
Every year I feel like I'm new to the world, and that, as the seasons change and you realize, the sun hits there at this time. Like, it's like I've never been on the planet before.
Yep.
It's fun, though.
Canucks lose 6-4 at home to Carolina. That's 7 straight losses now, 6-19-5, so winning exactly 20% of their games at Rogers Arena. That said, better game, better watch than recent Canucks effort, and I use the term generously. It's the first time since a 5-4 loss to Jersey on January 22nd that the Canucks scored more than 2 goals in a game. Not even 3. 2.
Yeah. You can't win 2-1.
Elias Pettersson looked a lot better and skating on a line with his optimal line mates. Many have said this. He's had chemistry with Höglander in the past and Garland. Kane wasn't working. Besser, we know it doesn't work unless Miller is there. DeBrusk hasn't worked. I know Nils Höglander was unavailable for the start of the year, but I think many Canucks fans were happy to see the 2 Swedes put back together.
And buddies.
And, of course, Garland's a driver too, right?
Yeah.
Well, what's the criticism of Elias when he's not playing? He's not a driver. Well, get him a fucking driver. Here's Garland. Not bad. 2 assists for Petey, his first multi-point game since January 27th. And Nils Höglander, poor guy, finally gets his first goal of the year.
Hey, we were critical a lot this week of Elias Pettersson, more for his words than his actions, but his actions didn't help his words at all.
One begets the other.
But based on how he played last night, I was curious. So I went and checked the NHL Edge stats, which have been a topic of conversation around Petey because of how slow he's appeared and how slow he's been recorded by these Edge stats. So I went and checked. Yesterday's performance did not rank in shot because he had the great late shot in the third period, fought off the shoulder of Bussy. That didn't crack the top 10. But I did stumble on this. If you're looking for silver linings to the play of Elias Pettersson, 22 of the 53 games that he's played this year have been in the calendar year 2026. So roughly 40% of the games that he's played. Way less than half. 5 of his top 10 shots are in 2026. 6 of his top 10 speed bursts are since January 1st as well. Could I be accused of grasping? I could be. But truth of the matter is, the best of his performances, or at least half of the best of his performances, have occurred in the minority games here in 2026. Is there something that is clicking over just a little bit? It's not profound. I'm not suggesting this evidence is profound, but it is something.
And I think that's the problem, Blake, and I think that's what Alvin spoke to yesterday, is that we shouldn't be talking about baby steps for an $11.6 million player.
And that is completely
fair.
Yep, completely fair.
Marco Rossi scored one of 2 power play markers for the Canucks, and nice to see that unit working. One was a 5-on-3. Let me just say this. getting confused by a troll here. All more negativity, just straight diet of it. And I'm saying, well, okay, where's the positivity? Show me the positivity. Here's some positivity. Mark my words, Marco Rossi is a much better hockey player than what you have seen to date, Canucks fans.
I hope.
I would not be surprised if over the final quarter of this season, Marco Rossi shows himself to be a good NHL scorer, because he has been. Now, if there were too many injuries and there's just too much ineptitude around him, dark cloud, all that, I would bet the beginning of next year you will see that Marco Rossi is a very good NHL player and with upside and potential still because he is young. So it was good to see him get on the scoreboard. Philip Hronek had 3 more points. I mean, what more can we say about him? Just a champ, a lion. Surrounded by pussycats, but he's a lion. And Drew O'Connor looked good again. And boy, I've got to hand it to him as well, because he was a certain lot in NHL life when he was acquired here as a depth forward. And he is putting a stake in the ground and saying, no, I am more than a depth forward. I am a middle 6 forward. And as we mentioned, if he was on a long-term contract here, he's young enough. I like his attitude too and his effort, that you'd want to keep him around because he could be a part of the next competitive cycle with the contract ending next year. Boy, if you get a good offer, and given the prices that are being paid, Blake, I could see a good offer for Drew O'Connor. I think you have to consider that.
First in 5-on-5 ice time among forwards last night. Third in expected goals for percentage amongst forwards. So I think Coach Adam Foote liked what he was seeing there as well.
Yeah. You know who was not good last night? Adam Foote and his staff. Again. I mean, they finally got Pettersson on a better line. But the goalie pull of Kevin Lankinen at 4-2. And given how reluctant he has been to pull goalies in game, Blake, I did not get this one in the least.
No.
When Shorty said that, I'm like, what? Tolipilo's getting ready to come in? I couldn't believe it.
I thought he was injured. I thought Lankinen.
No, that's it. I was like, in what fucking world is he making this goalie change? Was Lankinen great? No. But look, J-Pat there. J-Pat thought he was strong early. I don't disagree.
His first period.
He was under fire.
First period, he stopped 14 of 15 shots in a period. Yeah. That's a good first period. Yes, shaky start to the second, but for sure.
But it seems that Adam Foote and his staff don't understand the mission at hand here the rest of the year with Tolipilo. Your job is to put the young goaltender in the best situations to succeed and grow his confidence.
Yeah.
Instead, you throw him in cold, despite the fact you got a back-to-back coming up, Friday, Saturday, Chicago, Winnipeg. He lets in the first goal, and Foote criticizes him. Here's what the coach had to say. He didn't love the 5-2 goal. Here's Foote.
When you get set back with a couple goals that you think you should, and even Tolo coming in, he's got to have that short side one. That's a good lesson for him as well at the professional level. Like when you see them get a few quick ones in the second, got to get mentally ready. He might be going in. And I'm not saying he wasn't. Maybe he did, but we'll have a discussion with that. But that's just being young, and you got to get ready. And you see how a slight mistake on a dump, and they picked it off, and then that one went. They came back down her face, but they were hungry there. Though that one can't go in, but they were hungry knowing a young goalie came in. So we'll learn from that.
I am not going to say that he. I'm not going to say that was a good goal. It was not a good goal. As he said, it's a short side goal. But you've got to be ready. Jesus, coach. You know why he's not ready? You know why he's not ready? Because nobody is fucking expecting you to pull the goalie at 4-2 when he's had a terrific first period. Game's still competitive. And Tolipilo gets shelled on Monday by Dallas, and he knows he's playing in the back-to-back, probably Friday in Chicago.
And rather than do the momentum-changing goaltender swap, again, you have a timeout to call. You can do something like that to shift some of the momentum. But given that you should have a goaltender plan for all the reasons you outlined with regards to a young keeper in Nikita Tolipilo, You try to avoid, each guy playing at least 25 minutes in a game. Like, if you need a guy to pull, if you need to pull a guy in the third period, just for a mercy pull, so the other guy plays 17 minutes, that's fine. It. But when both guys work up a big sweat, because both of them have played a half an hour, like
it is so stupid.
Yeah.
Dumb. This wasn't a mercy pool. So let's give him the benefit of the doubt. Here's coach on why he hooked Lankinen.
I just want to change the energy. We'll go back and look. Maybe he could have had a couple of those, but just mainly just change the energy. I felt like didn't work at first, did it? Right? But the guys, what I liked is the fight they had throughout.
But that's why you call the timeout.
Bad goal. Yeah, exactly. Bad goal, coach, but you put them in a position to allow the bad goal.
You call them over to the bench, you call a timeout, Matt, and you say, guys, is it going to take me pulling Kevin out of the net for you to grab your attention? Or are you guys going to save me that and save his indignity and go out and play harder?
I would bet that even the most seasoned veteran NHL backup goaltender, Brian Hayward, back in the day, remember he used to always win those Jennings trophies with Patrick Waugh playing like 15 games and doesn't think he's going in that spot. The other thing is, treat Tolipilo like a starter. Again, put him in positions to succeed and grow his confidence. You treated him last night like he was a dispensable backup. He's a young goaltender that your franchise may very much need if Thatcher Demko can't get back to full health and can't be an option for you going forward. I think we know what Lankinen is and what Lankinen isn't right now. He had an extraordinary run of starts to start last season. He got handsomely rewarded. It was probably a mistake. You're going to have to live with him in the contract, but he's a co-starter or a backup. Try and build the young goaltender up. He didn't do that.
Also, the veteran backups are the guys that can more easily at any point drop into a lineup. The 25-year-old is a little less, well, he just hasn't seen those different scenarios as much. Mm-hmm. Like you'd rather those are the guys that they just start and you hope they finish. They may not even finish all their starts, but yeah, it's structuring things for success. And that was not a situation where you just needed to get Kevin Lankinen out of there. It wasn't.
And then there was this, and I'm going to give the coaching staff a little bit of a pass because of who this was. It was Filip Hronek, and we've lionized and talked about his exploits and even the leadership that he has shown now since Hughes was traded, and I suspect that will only increase now that Tyler Myers, another one of their letter wearers, was traded. But here's the visual. Filip Hronek is on the whiteboard in-game, drawing something up about the power play. Trevor Beggs with the photo there. And he said in the postgame, we just saw something with the guys and wanted to talk about it, Hronek said. And you know what? I applaud Filip Hronek for saying, hey, okay, I'm going to take a louder voice, a bigger leadership role in this team. So I'm going to pick up that whiteboard. So I want to be clear and careful here. That is not an indictment of Adam Foote or his staff because of who it was, and you want to give a veteran, intelligent player like Hronek that sort of leash. We saw Marcus Pettersson do this last year. You, if you go around the league, you will see this from time to time with other fully fledged NHL vets who are accustomed to playing in certain spots. But given the questions that we had at the beginning of the year about this staff's relative inexperience and the questions we now have about this staff's aptitude, it is at the very least not a good look. And if you told me that Filip Hronek, or there's a bunch of guys in the room going, this staff ain't it, this isn't NHL coaching, and we are going to take over or to at least take our opportunities to own the process and control the process a little more, that would not surprise me in the least, Blake.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a it's an casual outsider's view of that thing. Not that you are that, but JT Miller had a lot of input on the Canucks power play back in the day. He would be at the whiteboard conducting work with the coaches, saying, "No, this doesn't work. Let's do that."
Yep.
So that happens even on teams that are rolling. I'm talking during the good year or two of the Vancouver Canucks. He was very integral in that sort of thing. So I understand where you're going with that. But I think it's probably just a day that ends in Y, and he was having his say on what he thinks works.
All right.
Can it be misconstrued?
Maybe my antenna was up after the 4-2.
And does it open itself up to those sorts of second thoughts? Yes, it does. But in the end, I think it's probably nothing.
Yeah. Management wasn't very good last night either. You know what I mean? You're playing Teddy Bluger and Garland. Guys you have on the block.
There was one other option. Ratu was there.
Ratu for Teddy Bluger's no-brainer last night.
Yep. And with Garland leaving in the second period.
Oh, my God, I was ready to explode.
Everybody holding their breath.
I was ready to explode.
And, with that hand or wrist being jammed in there, Matt, that's one of those injuries, too, that you just can't take because it's just a freak injury. How many times do you brace yourself against the boards per game?
Yeah, lots.
And, oh, God.
But all the more reason why, if you're shopping, guys, if you think you're close, if you have nibbles, the game means nothing. The 2 points means nothing to you. Lastly here, before we bring in Pagnotta, Victor Mancini, tough return to the NHL, hadn't played since January 27th. On the ice for the first 3 Carolina goals. In the second period, he finished the night -3 in 13 minutes and 6 seconds. Shot attempts with him on the ice were 22-3, and shots were 9-2 for Carolina. We talked about big opportunity here for Victor Mancini with Tyler Myers shipped out. Did not take advantage on night 1. There will be many more nights.
Yep. Yeah, there's still lots of patience. So is he 23, Victor Mancini? You've got to let this guy skate out some of the issues and not have nerves on a nightly basis.
I don't think he has a ton of time, Blake. I think these last 20 games are important, but yes.
Yeah.
All right, let's bring him in here from the fourth period where he's the editor-in-chief, the DFO Insider, Wednesdays here on the Nation Network with Irf Ghaffar. And he'll be participating in the gigantic extravaganza for trade deadline tomorrow on the Nation Network and the Daily Faceoff. It's Mr. David Pagnotta. Hello, nice to see you. How are you?
You too, boys. Good. It's been a busy little bit, certainly, but things starting to pick up even more. We're in that period now where there's that little lull after a little bit of activity and everybody jumping in on the rest, and let's see how much that when I should say that picks up, be it later this evening, this afternoon or this evening, or are they saving it all for tomorrow? I guess we'll find out soon enough.
Feels like a simmer has started. Not a boil, but a simmer has certainly started.
Simmer.
Yeah.
Okay, David, you had mentioned there's some interest picking up. He's had a marvelous season and another good game last night. Drew O'Connor, what can you tell us there?
Yeah, certainly a player with another year on his contract that has generated interest from a number of different teams. He doesn't have a huge cap hit, and he does have limited no trade, but he's got a $2.5 million hit. And for his capabilities, that's a pretty attractive piece to some of the contenders that are looking to shore up their mid to bottom 6, the third line especially. But there are teams that are in that boat that want to do that are looking and kind of fishing around. And you look at teams like the Buffalo Sabres that couldn't pull off the Parayko deal. They're looking in other areas to shore up their blue line, but they're also looking for a depth piece. You look at Utah, you look at Vegas making a move the other day to bring in some pieces, and then bringing in Nick Dowd today. So they're probably and presumably out of the mix on that front. Colorado picking up Nick Waugh. There was interest there, but now with Waugh in, that might take them a little bit out of the mix. But you look at some of the other teams, as I mentioned, that are looking to shore up and add some depth, and Drew O'Connor is certainly a player that's generating interest on that front.
Does the extra year add to his value at this point, or do you think pure rentals are more order of the day?
No, honestly, it's situational. It's based on teams' cap situations and how they're kind of moving forward with some of their game plans. We know the preference for Dallas, for example, is to get guys on expiring deals unless it's a star-level talent that has term attached to their contract. And they'll fish in that pond for that particular asset. But some other teams that have cap restraints. Look at Tampa. Tampa's a team that's looking right now, fishing as well. Wouldn't surprise me if it's someone like that. Somebody like a Teddy Bluger. We know there's interest in Scott Lawton out of Toronto. So they're looking for those caliber players that are also in that $1 to $2 million range. Lawton's at 1.5. I believe Bluger's just under 2. I'm just checking here, 1.8.
Yeah.
And then, of course, O'Connor at 2.5. So it kind of fits the mold for some of those teams that, it's expiring deals on some fronts, but also that extra term does provide some value.
Oh, for sure. I mean, if you can't fit $2.5 million in where the cap is going, gosh. Do you know what? Do you know what the ask is, David, on O'Connor? Do you know what he could fetch in return?
Based on what some of the talk is for some of the other players out there, I would imagine a second round pick and another asset is probably in and around what the asking price is on him. I don't know that definitively, but just trying to gauge the market, knowing what some of the other players are commanding, he's probably in that range of a second plus for him, and primarily because there is that extra term, there is that extra year on his contract. Bluger, for example, there are multitude of options. I was told coming onto the show, that there are multiple options available for the Canucks with respect to Bluger, but they're fielding things out. The one thing I did also hear with respect to Bluger specifically is that if the Canucks don't feel they get a good enough return for him, they like the player, if he's still around after Friday's deadline, don't be shocked if they start to have some discussions of what a potential extension might look like on that front.
And nobody here disputes that at all, David, but we were sort of the mind, or I'm of the mind at the very least, like, by all means, he's the kind of player the Canucks would want on this roster next year. I get that 1,000%.
Yeah.
But if by Friday at 11:45 a.m., all you're getting is an offer for a 4th or a 5th round pick, while you might be disappointed in that, I would still make that trade. Do you think the Canucks still make that trade, or do they just have a bar that unless you cross it, we're not going to trade the player, even though he's a UFA?
Yeah, it does seem like they have set a specific bar for some of their assets, and if they don't hit it or come close to it, that they'll just hold on to these guys. I'm with you. I subscribe to that theory that if you're getting a lesser asset that you wanted, unless it's astronomically different, you bite the bullet and make the move, collect the asset. But their mentality seems to be a little bit different. It does sound like they're probably to get in and around whatever the ballpark price is for Bluger, because there are legitimately multiple teams that are in the mix for him. But we'll see how that trickles out over the course of the day and going into Friday, because there's a lot of teams that are fishing for similar type of players.
Yeah, and help me out, because we know it's not a direct comparison to Bluger. In part because there's term left, in part because they're just better, and in part because one's got a Stanley Cup ring. But Nicholas Roy fetching a conditional 1st and a 5th. And then Nick Dowd, who former Vancouver Canuck, who really blossomed when he got to Washington, returning a prospect. Was it a 2nd and a 3rd for him? Yep. That is pretty good work there. By Washington and by the Leafs in getting that sort of return on those players. How did those prices come about?
It's a combination of what they're and we're going to notice this and see this a little bit more. It's a combo of what they do on the ice and what they do off the ice. And for some of these guys coming into certain competitive environments, you want to make sure you're bringing in a player that, checks a certain box, but at the same, in terms of style and talent, but at the same time, it almost has to be a seamless transition coming into a room. And both of those guys are glue type of players. Nick Waugh was a tangible piece in Vegas. Didn't really work out in Toronto, so they move out and got, as you said, a pretty good return, a very good return. At the same time, Nick Dowd, there was a lot of disappointment this morning when, I put it out that he was being traded. A lot of people that I talked to in that organization were a little bit disappointed and upset that they were going in this direction, but also it just happened to be Nick Dowd. Him and his wife were so integral within that community that there are a lot of sad faces and a lot of sad bodies out there with respect to him being moved out of DC. But that just shows you what type of player is going to Vegas and what type of player at the same time is going to Colorado. So as much as you're paying, again, for the talent on the ice, you also have to make sure that whoever you bring in, and both of these guys have term, you want to bring in somebody that's going to almost seamlessly just naturally gel with the rest of your group. Those check boxes on that front. And I do suspect that, guys like Bluger, guys like O'Connor fit that mold as well. And that's why that's also, why the Canucks have probably set a pretty solid bar here for some of their assets based on the type of people they are and the price tags that are being paid right now.
Colton Parayko kills a trade with his no-move clause, and that is his prerogative. That's why it's there. The Canucks players, either that have the no-move clause or about to have no-move clause, don't seem as fussy about being, adhering to those no-trade clauses. The players with
Tell me Besser's going to Buffalo. Besser would go.
No, Buffalo, we'll see. But you tell those players with extended term, as we get to the tougher trades, are you still well below 50% chance of any of those happening for the Vancouver Canucks?
I mean, they're trying. I think name totally blank. Connor Garland, excuse me. I think he's somebody that is aggressively out there that the Canucks are trying to make happen. They may not at the end of the day because of that contract, and I'm sure there's a pretty decent price to it. There have been teams that have checked in, most notably the Islanders in Boston. I don't think it's a fit on either of those fronts at this stage. But there are other teams that are kind of in that mix that do have interest in the player and seem to be comfortable overall with the contract. It's just a matter of how do you make the asset acquisition cost work, and that's what they're clearly doing. He doesn't have say now because his no trade doesn't kick in until July 1. Jake DeBrusk, bit of a different story. We talked about this last week, how there's a willingness from his side to accept a trade out of Vancouver. He amplified that on Monday with his comments, effectively saying, yeah, I wave to get out of this environment. I think both certainly available. I think we all know that. I think Garland might be a little further along than DeBrusk, but again, it's all going to depend on what type of assets are brought back, and the Canucks, again, trying to maximize that.
Jersey and Washington were mentioned on Connor Garland by somebody, I forget now. Have you heard those two tied, and does that make sense based on what you know the Capitals and Devils are looking for here?
I've heard a little bit of New Jersey. I haven't heard too much on the Caps, and it's not to say it's not possible because it does fit what they're both looking for. So, yes, Washington moved out Dowd, and yes, they're listing on a couple other of their players, but they're also looking to bring in somebody with term that fits that group that they can grow with and next season and beyond. So, in terms of contractual status and what they bring to the table, that certainly makes sense. And I wouldn't be shocked if the Caps go in that direction. New Jersey, it's no secret. They're looking for somebody to play on the right side with Jack Hughes. And obviously familiarity there with his brother. And that could potentially be a fit because they're looking for someone. You've got Brad on one side. You've got Jack up the middle. They're looking for somebody on that right side to help with the offense. It hasn't worked out for them on paper by any stretch, especially on the ice as well. They want a goal scorer more than anything. So, Garland, not necessarily a prototypical pure goal scorer, but it does check off a box in terms of the Devils looking to add an offensive winger ahead of the deadline. So both make sense. And like I said, I think New Jersey has checked in. I just don't know how far along either of those may be.
How hefty is the price on Nemec there in New Jersey? Does a Garland for Nemec principal trade make any sense to you from what you understand?
From Vancouver's side, run with that. From New Jersey's side, I don't think so. I think if they are going to either move Nemec or combo Nemec, it's going to be for a legit, first-line caliber player without hesitation of any regard. And
it makes sense. The other thing, David, is Connor Garland has not scored a goal in 23 games. How much is that hurting his value based on what you know?
Well, I don't think it's detrimental. I think people are obviously cognizant of the fact, but not detrimental in the sense that, look, what's gone right in Vancouver this season, right? I think everybody understands that. I think everybody knows that for the most part, a lot of guys have struggled this season because it's been a collective struggle. And it's not to say they're getting a full mulligan, but there is a little bit of an understanding that, okay, look, it's been an off year, but it's not a one-off. It's not just you. It's a variety of players, and there's a reason why you guys are at the bottom of the standing. So I think everyone understands the players that guys like Garland, guys like DeBrusk are and are capable of, and the output that they're capable of doing and producing. But everybody is, like I said, aware of the fact that Vancouver's season has been, I don't know, let's go with rough.
David, they replaced all the seats in the arena, so that went right. It took 2.5 years, but they finally replaced all the seats, so there's your high water mark for how the season has gone so far. We have not mentioned the name of Evander Kane, have we?
He was my next question, as a matter of fact.
Do you remember Evander Kane, David? Does the rest of the league? I mean, he may have been acquired to be flipped, and is that plan going awry?
Yeah, you took my joke effectively. I heard of him. I don't know if anybody else has lately. It's been quiet on that front. The Canucks are willing to retain half of his contract. I think we all know that by this point. It's been fairly quiet. Although, and I mentioned this last week, that he is a plan, C and D for a lot of teams. So this may be a last minute type of scenario where if some clubs that are looking to add, a physical offensive type of player for a playoff run, if they strike out on, A, B, and C, they could circle back to Vancouver and say, if you're taking half, we'll give you this. Let's make it happen. But that's based on that. I suspect that's going to be something closer to deadline time itself. If it does work out, unless a team strikes out on everybody now and knows that that's the only option. But again, because he's presumably the fourth option for a lot of teams and on, that if it does happen, it's a last minute type deal.
And because he's that last retention slot, they can't. They've got to be careful about where that goes in terms of another trade too, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, and the way to weigh that is, look, if you're going to get a third round pick or a fifth round pick or something like that, or whatever it is for Evander Kane, is it worth grabbing, let's say, that fifth at the last minute, or and then paying half of his salary? Or does it make sense to retain on somebody else to make a deal a little bit more attractive for a Drew O'Connor, for example, if you're eating on his 2.5 for this year and next, just like they did with Tyler Myers? If you get a high draft pick as part of that, that juice might be worth the squeeze versus just saving that spot for Evander.
Lastly, from me, David, I don't mean to put you on the spot here, but I'm sure you have heard all sorts of things here of late. Give me a stunner. Give me something we could see here in the next 23 hours that would knock
any surprises.
Whether it's a team, whether it's a player who hasn't been all that prominent in trade talk, whether it's a three-way trade to facilitate. Give me something between now and next and tomorrow noon Pacific time that you think has even a snowball's chance.
Oh boy. Okay. This is where I get radioed. Let's see. Well, okay, here, I'll get one that I wouldn't be shocked at this point. I would have been a little bit surprised about a week ago if this were to happen. Not so much anymore. And if it doesn't happen now, I suspect it'll happen at some point in the offseason. Morgan Riley in Toronto. The Leafs are listing on a variety of guys. I think his name, or I know his name has popped up a little bit more recently, and recently being this week in the last few days. So maybe it's not fully out of left field, but I wouldn't be surprised if we see something hover around Morgan Riley and the Toronto Maple Leafs. I think there are some discussion points there that are worth expanding.
And David, you would have no idea of knowing this, but one of our most loyal audience members for 15 years is Andy Riley of West Vancouver, father of Morgan.
Oh, boy. Well,
I'll be sure to break it to him. In fact, I'm going to text him.
Are the Leafs trying to get assets back, or do they want the cap space? What's the MO there for them?
A combination. So maybe give your son a call. But I think it's a combo. I think they have an understanding that they've got to make some pretty decent adjustments and changes to their roster. And I think that you're probably not going to get market value right now, but I do think if you can bring back a solid asset or a combo, depending on what they're looking for, and free up a little bit of money moving forward, then I think that would work for the Toronto Maple Leafs. That being said, a guy like Morgan Riley at $7.5 million as a number 2 defenseman on a contending team or a team that's on the cusp of that looks pretty good. So I would look at teams like San Jose and Anaheim, if we do go west, as potential suitors for a guy like that. So I would throw him in the mix as one of those, whoa, did this really happen type of moves. And then two teams I'm also very curious about. I think Utah is itching to do something. In addition to bringing in Uyghur, they're itching to doing something up front. Whether they've I think they've re-engaged with Thomas, but whether that's provided a little bit of traction at this point, I'm not sure. But I'm looking at them, and I'm looking at Seattle, another team very desperate to make a big splash for a star talent and a first-line caliber guy. I suspect that's, it is something they want to do. It wouldn't shock me if either of those two teams, one making a second big splash and Seattle making a big one as well. So I'd throw
Thomas is perfect for Utah, isn't it? Because he's young enough that he's fits.
Thomas is perfect for everyone.
But in terms of the cost and the ability to pay, Utah's got a cupboard that's full, and he's not so old that he doesn't grow with the core that he's got. To me, that's a perfect
Montreal
mix.
too. They're having the same conversation in Montreal on Robert Thomas.
Yeah, and well, exactly. And I think the Habs are in a different predicament because they don't feel they're there just yet. Like, they don't feel like we're going to get Robert Thomas and we're going to be a legitimate Stanley Cup favorite moving forward.
They're 2 years behind Utah.
I think from that regard. Now, the thing on Utah, because their cupboard is so deep, I believe the primary target for St. Louis is Caleb Desnoyers, who was drafted fourth overall last draft. I was told it's him, a first-round pick, and another first-round equivalent asset in terms of the ask from St. Louis. I was told they're not moving Iginla, they're not moving Simashev, but Desnoyers seems to be someone they, for whatever reason, as opposed to the other two, are comfortable with in this regard because of the player. But how much more they're willing to add, that's clearly what those two teams are discussing.
All right. The good news is it doesn't appear like Andy Riley's watching live, or I would have heard from him. I'll make a note. I'll tell him he's a good guy. He's not causing trouble.
Yeah.
You know, Andy, he's the most upbeat, gregarious, happy guy.
As we just saw with Parayko.
And if Morgan wants to come home and babysit the kids for a little bit because the Leafs went off the contract, I can think of no
He's
better
got a no
human
move clause. He's like
to walk
Parayko.
in.
He gets to call the
Yeah.
shots.
Yeah.
So.
Full say. Absolute full say.
David, I know you've been chock-a-block. Can't thank you enough for this, my friend. Thank you. Have a great promote tomorrow. Tell them all about what you got coming up tomorrow.
Yeah, well, yeah, certainly. On DFO, we've got the full trade deadline coverage here starting at 11 Eastern, going all the way through, I think it's 3:30 or 4 p.m. Eastern here in studio. I'll be sitting right here whenever trades kind of go down. So hopefully, I more than anyone, am really looking forward to activity tomorrow. So I'll be doing that. And then we've got Carter Hutton, Jeff Merrick hosting the main desk with Hutz, and Wojtek Wolski jumping on as well, former NHLer. And then bouncing around, Irfan Ghaffar in Vancouver, Tyler over in Edmonton, Johnny Laz and Colby Cohen as well in New York. So we're going all over the place here, providing additional coverage.
Sounds great.
Awesome stuff, David. Thanks for the time.
You got it. See you, boys.
That's David Pagnotta. Read him on the Fourth Period, where he's the editor-in-chief. Watch him with Irf Ghaffar on Wednesdays, the DFO Insider Edition. Of course, tomorrow with Jeff Merrick and all the friends there on the Nation Network and the Daily Faceoffs trade deadline extravaganza.
If honestly, if Morgan Riley was 2 years younger and had 2 years fewer on that contract, I would almost advocate for helping the Leafs out with regards to that. But at 31, with all those years remaining, the Leafs are going to have a tough time, I think, with Morgan Riley.
Yeah.
It's a big contract still.
It's a very big contract, and I think they felt like they would still be competitive at this point.
Yeah, well, exactly.
Right?
If they're a better team, I think Morgan Riley's stats look better, and they've got no itch to scratch there for sure.
Yep. Okay, couple of other things I want to get to. This is a very long first segment. We understand that, but it's a different structure show today because of everything that's going on. We wanted to be up to the minute. Just a couple of other things I wanted to get to. Boy, we talked about ticket prices for that Monday game, Dallas, that we had a buddy that got in lower bowls for $60 a pop. I tweeted this yesterday. I have a friend who's not the biggest hockey fan. 2 kids, teacher, so, it's not like there's oodles of disposable dollars. He texted me last night. He goes, "Are you going to be at the game?" I said, "No." He goes, "You are?" He goes, 8 rows up. I'm like, "Oh, wow. What'd you pay?" Like $56 a ticket. The get-in price last night in the upper bowl, the lowest one that I saw, the cheapest one I saw was $27, everybody. And look, we've said now for a little while, but it is getting really pronounced, really acute, everyone. If there is a happy byproduct to what's happening to the Vancouver Canucks this year, is that the tickets are getting to a place where many who can't afford to go to Canucks games when the team's humming along are getting an opportunity to go and even bring their kids to the game.
And if the games looked like last night, Matt, I would wholeheartedly agree. But my daughter was asking me this question. We were watching the game together last night, and it's 5-2 at this point. And she says, how much are tickets going for? And so I go through some of the anecdotes we've been talking about. And she says, well, can we go to a game? I'm like, no. She goes, why not? I said, because then we'd have to watch this and still pay for parking and still pay the $20 beers. And I said, you still ended up paying several $100s to watch this.
Yeah.
So,
well, let me read some of the replies I got when I tweeted that about $56 per ticket, 8 rows up. I wouldn't pay $56 to watch the unwatchable. They paid $56 too much. Still wouldn't. Throw in parking and a meal, maybe.
There you go, yeah.
Do you have to bring your own paper bag? That's still too much. And on it went. Yeah, somebody said to me, I almost pounced on $27 upper bowls, taxes and fees included, but I can't monetarily support the direction the team is going. And then lastly, Lyle said, he has my sympathy.
Exactly. Thoughts and prayers.
Honestly, the replies in the comments are good territory these days for humor.
The downside for the person taking the moral stance, I can't support that money has already been passed to Canucks Sports and Entertainment on the secondary market. You're just trying to support the poor sap that bought them originally, of course, not the Canucks themselves.
Let's hear from Tyler Myers, shouldn't we? I mean, we should hear him out because he was a pro's pro. Everything we said about him yesterday, about being a leader, a conscience, an extension of the coaching staff, a full-time British Columbian now as well. He said his farewells to this market yesterday and did so in an extremely classy way. He was asked to reflect on his time here, and he gave a pretty thorough answer. Here's Myers.
Yeah, I mean, there were different times where things weren't going very well, and then there were times where things were going very well. You learn pretty quick in this league that things can change fast one way or the other. And, just some of the things that stand out, one thing in particular is the season a couple years ago. I thought we had a team that could really do some damage. And, that's how tight the league is. It's tough to win, and you have to come in making sure you're ready each and every night. And, things aren't going well right now for the team here, and which leads to situations like this. And and it's in our minds, we feel very fortunate to be able to be given this opportunity, given the situation what I was in here in Vancouver this year. It's a great group of guys. Wish nothing but the best for them. I'm sure I'll keep in touch. But it's we look at it as it's a good time to move on.
Yeah, absolutely. And I heard from someone in the Okanagan today who knows Tyler, who thought there was 3 destinations that he would have chosen to go to here at this deadline. All were warm weather environments with cup contending teams, and you can understand that with a full no move clause. We mentioned the history his family has in Texas, so he's closer to home there. One other Tyler Myers story I forgot yesterday. So this year at training camp, our friends from Yellow Dog set aside a couple of tee times at Penticton Golf and Country Club. One was for us, and then one was for some Canucks. They're very close with Red Hamilton, the equipment manager with the Canucks. And so we knew we would be playing in front of or behind a group of Canucks, and sure enough, we were playing in front of a group, and Evander Kane was the first to the course, and he's on the putting green, and someone from our group goes over to talk to him, comes back, and we say, who's playing behind us. And our buddy says, oh, it's going to be Kane, Besser, Garland, and Marcus Pettersson. And he said, Evander joked that Tyler Myers was supposed to play, but he's a goody two-shoes and he had to get his workout in. And I was like, yep, that's the Tyler Myers. I know. And you hear the discussion from Canucks Besser yesterday. Myers talked on it yesterday as well, Adam Foote, too, of he was preparing himself to play these games like they were important games, despite the fact he knew he was not playing these games and going to be held out for injury prevention reasons with the trade discussions going on. That's the sort of pro Tyler Myers is.
Wanted to get to one last little bit here. Remember Stefan Rosner in New York was talking about the Islanders and Connor Garland. He says what seems to be evaporating a lot of Vancouver talks is their inability, their refusal to take bad money back.
Why?
On deals.
Why?
Not necessarily the retention part. It sounds like it's the taking back of contracts.
Well, retention, they only have the one spot left,
Yeah.
and they want to save it for Kane. That I understand.
Yeah.
If there is a market for Kane. But, like, how many years left does Mangiapane have?
2, I think.
I mean, they should have been willing on a guy like Mangiapane, no?
Yeah. Might even
Like,
be
that's
one.
not going to cripple you in terms of your ability to go out and build a team for the next competitive cycle. Like, Mangiapane's not even in the NHL right now. Yeah, one more year after this one. Chicago's retaining less than 2.5 on Mangiapane.
Yeah.
How are they? If you're a Canuck, how are you not doing that?
Long-term retention is the only thing I would be against. And at this point, if you can't get anything for Kane, again, if retention on Kane only gets you a 5th rounder, but retention on something else, per David's point, if it gets you way more to retain on somebody else, then I guess, then you forego the Kane trade and you use it for a greater good.
Yes, pivot. Like Ross and Friends.
Pivot.
One last thing here. Ivar Stenberg is a champion. The Swedish winger, he's going to go number 1 or number 2 overall. He could very well be a Vancouver Canuck come June. He helped his Frölunda club from the Swedish League capture the Champions League title for Europe.
Did not figure into the scoring, but
he's holding the big trophy.
Yeah.
As Joey Kenward notes, 60 games played this season across junior, pro, all competitions. It's 19 goals, 32 assists. So 51 points in 60 games across all competitions for Stenberg as an 18-year-old Blake playing against men in most of those games.
At the junior level, he had 18 points in 15 games. So well above a point per game at the junior level. And at the pro level, he's been pretty damn good as well. So
let's get to our menu. It's brought to you by Greta, a fantastic spot to pregame or postgame. You are mere steps from the arena and stadium. I mentioned earlier in the week we're going to be there Saturday. That has been postponed. We're going to be at Greta for another watch party coming up. At some point, we will let you know. If you are having or looking for a venue for a team event, family reunion, work party, whatever the case may be, check out Greta. It specializes, fantastic spot to give you a private party. They got the riser up back. It'll be yours alone if you so want. They have the arcade that encircles the bar, game for everyone. They have an awesome menu of street food, something for everybody. Go to gretabar.com for more information. Greta, 50 West Cordova. Let the games begin. As mentioned, different show today. We wanted to bring Pagnotta in live. We decided we're going to talk to PJ tomorrow because he's going to be down at Rogers Arena handling Canucks deadline. JPAT will join us tomorrow as well. So that's tomorrow, and we will be noon Pacific time. Hey, if something gargantuan breaks between now and then, in fact, not even gargantuan, there's an Evander Kane trade we will do.
if there's a mouthful of a trade, we will.
They make an
have some
Evander
content.
Kane trade, we are doing emergency. If they make a Connor Garland trade, we are doing an emergency pod. I'm not sure we're doing an emergency pod for Teddy Bluger. But
Honestly,
we'll see.
But Teddy Bluger is going to give you more than Evander Kane.
Well, then we're doing an emergency pod for Teddy Bluger.
Like Evander Kane for a 6th-round pick.
Mike-
I don't know if I'm doing content for that.
He doesn't get out of bed for less than A third round
Fourth
pick?
round?
Oh, fourth.
Yeah, I think I might do one for fourth.
Really wants to get out of the house then. Kids have designs on plans for dad today. No, kids. We got a fourth round pick to talk about.
Today's an open evening. My daughter's in a championship game playing for the banner tomorrow, but that's post deadline, so we're good.
Time now for our Bet365 bets of the day. I had a DeBrusque goal last night, so I was a loser.
I was Pettersson. So close. Both guys were pretty close, but
look, I just have no belief in the LA Kings right now. I think that's a room waiting for their general manager to bring them something to help replace Kevin Fiala and compete down the stretch. I think the Islanders are a hungry team. I think Matthew Schaefer is only getting better day to day, week to week. I'm getting plus value on the Islanders in Los Angeles. Give me New York at plus 115 to beat the Kings.
Calgary Flames, of course, torching their team right now as they approach the deadline. We'll see who's even in the lineup tonight for the Calgary Flames. The visiting Senators can be a lot of fun. I'm willing to give up a goal and a half on the Senators to beat the Flames. Minus 1.5 pays a plus 155.
This segment of presentation of Bet365, whatever your bet, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Download the app, get in on the game. Use code NATION when doing so. Must be 19 or older. Please play responsibly. And coming up next, the Seahawks aren't going to run it back. They're just going to let their UFAs walk. We'll talk about the Super Bowl champions coming up next. Harrison Price from the historic Wall Center in the Nation Network studio built by Arbor Lee. Game night turns into a game weekend at the Wall Center. From puck drop to last call, everything you need is right outside your door. Stay where the fans stay, wallcenter.com. And we start today with the defending Super Bowl champion Seattle Seahawks, who are choosing not to run it back. Awash in cap space, General Manager John Schneider is not inclined to use it on Super Bowl MVP running back Kenneth Walker. We mentioned that. Wide receiver Rashid Shaheed or edge rusher Boye Mafa. That's the word from NFL insiders who say Schneider will let all three guys walk into free agency, which starts Monday.
They didn't use Rashid Shaheed that much. It didn't seem to be a perfect fit.
But you've got to surround that quarterback with weapons.
Yep.
Your starting running back is going to free agency. Your other running back is coming off a knee. Rashid Shaheed was the stretch the field guy, vertical threat, and the gadget guy, which opened up a lot of room for you.
I'll admit there's room for criticism here. There is reason to question the strategy at this point. With the Super Bowl ring on the hand, I think we give him a wide berth here and allow him to cook and see what he's doing.
Blake has been saying the 12s and Hawks management are still bathing in gravy here and that the former is going to give the latter the longest of leashes, and I agree. And he has earned that. He has constructed 2 Super Bowl champions. But
breaststroke and rosemary gravy.
Rosemary. Fancy gravy at the Price household. Yes. Wow. We're just a regular...
I don't think he does this. I don't think Schneider does this unless he knows that he's got players X, Y, and Z lined up.
Well, help me out here because the Seahawks only have 4 draft picks this year.
Yeah.
You're awash in cap space. The Rams just swung a huge trade to get an impact defensive player in Trent McDuffie. And they're going to be aggressive with the Super Bowl in their home stadium this coming season. Why not give this group a chance to see if it can repeat? Kansas City, of course, has recently repeated as Super Bowl champions. Kansas City and New England went to 3 straight Super Bowls. Kansas City has another sequence of going to back-to-back Super Bowls. Philly went to 2 in 3 years. Even the Legion of Boom Seahawks went to consecutive Super Bowls. So it is achievable.
Yeah.
Quite achievable. In fact, the long history of the league, you've got a lot of repeat contestants in the Super Bowl.
You've got your first 3 picks, though. So, picks 1 and 2, possible contributors.
Yeah, well, probably trading back to get extra picks, but we'll see. Captain Greg Bell says the bidding going to start Monday with Shaheed. There will be multiple bidders. There's word he could get like $18 million a year, which is a very handsomely priced number 2 wide receiver. I can understand being worried about Walker and Maffei's durability. They have been hurt over the years. Now, we talked about the running back class in the draft and even free agency aren't exactly the strongest. Seattle is being linked to Minnesota edge rusher Jonathan Grenard, and he's expected to cost a 2nd or a 3rd round pick and a additional pick. Seattle owns their 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 6th this year.
In a trade, you're talking.
Yeah, he would be a trade.
I mean, it's curious.
It is curious.
But we'll see what within 2 or 3 weeks. I think we're gonna have a pretty good idea of what his plan was.
Yeah. You're gonna see free agency play out next week and the week after for the most part, and then you're gonna get to late April, and of course, then you get to the draft. Big trade today. Chicago trades wide receiver DJ Moore and a 5th round pick to Buffalo for a 2nd in this upcoming draft. Moore didn't really have chemistry with Caleb Williams last year. The Bears had a couple of young receivers who seemed to be more the apple of their quarterback's eye. Bill's absolutely desperate for a wide receiver. You saw them basically get run out of the position last year as we got down the stretch and into the playoffs. And the Patriots are releasing Stephon Diggs, who has worn out his welcome in a couple of places already, including Buffalo.
Shocker. Yeah, but Allen needs tools, so that makes sense for
that. Yeah, it's a higher price to pay, but at least you don't give up a draft pick. It just makes
they should get Shaheed as well and just be like a crazy offense.
It was an improved showing for the Canadian women's national team versus the United States at the She Believes Cup last night in Nashville, Tennessee, but they did fall 1-0 to the 2nd-ranked Americans. We both watched parts of this game, scoreless at the half. They got beat on a set piece. Okay, it happens. There was better build-up, box to box, for the Canadians, but the midfield was depleted. Jesse Fleming couldn't play with an illness, and Simi Awujo lasted just 37 minutes in midfield, also an illness there. So there wasn't actually a whole lot of threat in the box.
Yeah, I think that's
fair. We were
fair.
happy with how they got to the box,
but
they
build.
Didn't do really anything inside the box.
A much better build-up, and there are new players being brought in that I thought
was a young team. They left a couple of stalwarts, Adriana Leone, at home.
The new players had some skills that I'm getting to know them, so I didn't know who they were necessarily and what they brought to the table.
Vancouver's Holly Ward among them.
Yeah, well, we've seen her because she plays here with the Rise, but I think it's going to be interesting to see if they can build on this, because it was promising. Like if this game was 4-0, Matt, no one really would have batted an eyelash given the way the Canadians have played.
It could have got away late. There were some opportunities for the U.S. late, but at 1-0, I mean, it's still on the surface, looks okay.
Canada got into the box at several times. In fact, there was an odd man rush, 4-on-2. Mm-hmm. Canada gets it into the box right near the spot, but back to goal, and they couldn't fish it out of their feet and get a chance away. Mm-hmm. And there were several chances where they got into the box just inside the area, and nothing, not even a shot on goal.
Yeah. So they're winless in the last 5 years against the United States. They finished this tournament with the 30th ranked Argentines on Saturday. And if they win that, head coach Casey Stoney and the players can start feeling better about their trajectory here in 2026 after closing 2025 with 5 straight defeats and no goals.
They need to, in that win over Argentina,
Lots of goals.
They need to.
I want to see a lot of
They
goals.
need to score goals.
Yeah. Well, they scored 4 against Colombia.
Yep,
so,
and that was good.
yeah.
I'd do it again.
More FIFA news for the World Cup here in June. The city announcing yesterday that 5 blocks of Granville Street between West Georgia and Davie will become a vehicle-free FIFA World Cup pedestrian zone. Daily Hive saying expect patios, vendors, food, live music, cultural activations, and placemaking. The pedestrian zone, will run between June 11th and July 20th in what the city is calling, quote, a people first street. Cross streets, Robson, Smythe, Nelson, and Helmkin will remain open to vehicle traffic. So you will be able to cross Granville Street. You just won't be able to drive on Granville Street for, 5.5 weeks come this summer. The Whitecaps are surging up power rankings everywhere. Sports Illustrated's Ben Steiner has them up to number 3 in the league. So does MLS Media. They check in at number 4 on the CONCACAF Champions Cup rankings behind 2 Mexican sides, Cruz Azul and Toluca, and also behind Inter Miami from the MLS. It was a Cruz Azul who beat them in the final last year?
Cruz Azul beat them in the final 5-0. Now, speaking of the Mexican sides, they got their League's Cup schedule handed to them today.
The Whitecaps?
Yes. Remember, they didn't have to play League's Cup, and I say have to because they played 53 matches last year without League's Cup.
And nobody gives a shit about League's Cup.
They are being forced now to play League's Cup this year because the League's Cup has been slimmed down. It used to be all of MLS played. Now it's just the playoff teams to play. So that forces the Whitecaps into action, which is why,
What is this tournament again? Like it's just a cup tournament inside the MLS regular season?
Yeah.
Like NBA Cup?
Yeah, but it involves the Mexican teams, right?
Oh,
Liga MX.
Yeah.
The 18
Like
Liga MX.
CONCACAF is not enough?
No.
Aye.
So they are into it. They have 2 home games as a result, though. So they've got that going for them as well.
When are they? Do we know?
They've got Tuesday, August 14th versus Mazatlan. Friday, I'm going reverse here. Yeah, they put them in weird order here. August 7th versus Juarez. August 11th on the road in Mexico versus Tigres. And then August 14th back at home versus Mazatlan. So, I mean, no crossing of streams here with an MLS team. 3 games against Mexican sides. And, yeah. So the terrible thing is if they do well, they would advance
And play more games.
and be on.
For a cup they really don't want to win or don't care to win because it's not the Canadian Championship, it's not CONCACAF, and you've got your sights set on the Supporter Shield and MLS Cup. They're in Portland Saturday to face the Cascadia rival Timbers. It is their one road match in the early going of this MLS schedule, with BC plays unavailable to them in June, July, so they have a front-loaded home schedule. And CONCACAF Champions Cup Round 2 begins Wednesday at BC Place against the other Cascadia rival, the Seattle Sounders. Congratulations to a pair of Surrey girls, Faith Dute and Tara Wallach. They've been named to Canada's senior women's basketball team for next week's World Cup qualifying tournament in Turkey.
Sure. Yeah, that works.
You can't. We're not supposed to call it Turkey any.
I think many people are moving on from Turkey to the proper pronunciation, but it's not quite to Czechia levels of adjustment, but yeah.
Turkey.
Turkey, yeah.
Turkey. Both Dute and Wallach went to Semiahmoo Secondary. Played their high school ball there. Wallach went to Wazoo, Dute to Florida, both in their second year with the national teams. They both played 12 games for Canada. Canada ranked number 7 going into this tournament, play 4 games, including against number 2 Australia. That's the final match, though. They played number 16 Turkey, number 20 Hungary, number 27 Argentina, number 11 Japan, and then Australia. Best of luck to them. And Blake, the Formula One season begins this weekend at the Australian Grand Prix in Melbourne, where the Aston Martin team, owned by Canadian Lawrence Stroll, car driven by Canadian Lance Stroll, his son, is in crisis already. This is during testing. Despite having the legendary car developer Adrian Newey, people would say he's the best who's ever done that in Formula One, the Aston Martin vibrates so badly that the team has already announced they will not complete the race distance of 58 laps. They're hoping to run 15 to 25 laps. Why, you say? Because the car is shaking so bad that mirrors and other parts of it are popping clean off the ride. Like driving along at 320 kilometers an hour and your side view mirror just pops off the vehicle. So it's a safety issue for the drivers, not just the Aston Martin drivers, everybody else. Car parts flying off at 300 kilometers an hour.
I don't think James Bond would abide.
No, exactly. Canadian Lance Stroll was asked about it. You see the graphic there. I don't know how you could compare it. I guess just like electrocute yourself in a chair or something like that. It's not that far off.
Wow.
They are in different regulations, different engines, different. There were big technological changes this offseason in Formula One, and it seems like the Aston Martin team has failed miserably.
I mean, I don't say this lightly. They have one job.
And they have the best guy who's ever done it.
Like, your business is creating cars.
Your business is to make a couple of fast race cars, yes.
That's the whole thing.
And you've had since, last season ended in December, but usually F1 teams are developing the next year's car midway through a year. So
I'd forgive
really,
like the new team. Who jumped in this year? Ford? Who jumped in?
Two new teams, Audi and Cadillac.
Yeah. So I'd forgive them having these issues.
They will probably have some issues, but I can't imagine it could be worse than the car falling apart at speed.
Even our cars don't electrocute our drivers. We're way ahead of the game here.
Like, Blake, if these guys have fillings in their teeth, they may just pop out under the helmet.
Oh, my God. How was your drive? It has a little zingy in
Yeah,
the teeth.
exactly.
A little
I'll
zingy.
need a dentist. Exposed nerve. Results of the poll question from yesterday. We asked you, do you look back fondly on Tyler Myers' tenure with the Vancouver Canucks? We did more than 2,000 votes on this. The people really wanted their say on Big Tyler. Yes or no? What did they say?
I think they said yes.
You're damn right they said yes. What percent?
83.
82. Well, hey, right on the number, 82 and a half.
Yeah.
We'll round it up. We'll give them credit. It's a correct bid here on the price is right.
Right.
Peter, pure professional. His heart was here. And how many players can we say that about? Best wishes in Dallas. Yes, well said. Peter Waddy, pretty average player during his tenure, but you can tell he's a great person and great in the room. All that stuff makes it a yes on this end. Belka, no, never should have signed him. And James says he laid out Duncan Keith. That's all we need.
It was a big moment.
Errors and omissions from yesterday's program. So Blake did some research on Robson Street because we mentioned there could very well be a push coming up here to name a street in our city after the late legendary Jim Robson, who passed away a few weeks ago. Stands to reason that street would be somewhere around Snap Bailey Stadium where he called all the baseball games. Maybe it's on the east side of town near the Coliseum. But of course, we have a Robson Street, and it is named for former British Columbia Premier John Robson.
Yeah.
And it's been Robson Street since
like 1895 or something
1892.
1892?
So basically, Robson Street used to have blacksmiths operating.
Yeah.
This is before the combustion. That's before vehicles.
So I would argue that rather than it being an insult to John Robson's, I would say
I think we're a little past John Robson's errors getting miffed about this, Blake.
he's also had a good run. Like
he had a really
130 odd year run as being the namesake of the street. Can we
kind
give
of
it
the
to
main
Jim?
street downtown too? When you think of it,
can we give it to Jim now for the next 130 years?
We just had Jim to Robson Street.
Yeah. Or we give them both? It's Jim
Mr.
/
Mayor?
John Robson Street. Jim John Robson Street. Want to go cruise Jimmy John?
We would bring this up with the mayor, but he's got bigger matters these days.
Yeah. There's a few
just willy-nilly accusing counselors
real
of distributing narcotics on Christmas.
real counselors of Vancouver should be in reality show.
I will tell you, Blake, my friends in our nation's capital, who are big politicos, are all very jealous of those who get to cover politics in our fair province. And when I inquired once upon a time, they said, "Oh my God, it's the dog and pony show of Canadian politics." This was, of course, pre whatever's going on in Alberta these days. And I go, "Well, give me some examples." They go, "Well, the RCMP showing up at Glenn Clark's house in the middle of the night, a premier getting a Dewey in a Hawaiian mugshot in a Hawaiian shirt, premiers sleeping with their finance ministers, and now mayors perhaps facing libel actions because they just blurted out so-and-so is distributing drugs on the streets on Christmas Day."
But you may have to
Christy Clark running red lights
watch the power
with
rankings,
a reporter in the car.
Watch the power rankings. There's another Ford that's about to start running for the mayoral office in Toronto.
That is true. That is true.
So
that is true.
Keep an eye on the power rankings.
The Ford dynasty in Ontario could usurp us in terms of all-time dog and pony show politics. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Appreciate you spending some time connecting with the program. Please do subscribe to our assorted channels, especially YouTube. Blake really likes it when you subscribe to YouTube. And wherever you get your podcast, follow on social, X, Insta, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, Blue Sky, live on many of those platforms, noon Pacific time weekdays, including tomorrow, right at trade deadline in the National Hockey League.
And keep your eye on all those channels, because if we do have to do an emergency content, then you'll see it there.
And please do support the community sponsors you hear us talking about. Keep it local.